Flight 87, Imperial Service, now leaving for Chicago, San Francisco, and Honolulu. All aboard, please.
Arrivée dans quelques minutes d'un avion Air France en provenance de Lisbonne. I passeggeri in partenza per Roma sono pregati di andare in sale del riparto.
Flight 833, mainliner service leaving for Detroit, Chicago, Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Where is it I find the plane to Chicago?
I beg your pardon.
Where is the plane to Chicago?
May I see your ticket, please?
Here it is. Flight 633.
Oh, gate 17.
Is that the north gate or the south gate?
Gate 17 is north, right through that door.
I have not understand.
You see where the man in the tan raincoat is standing?
The man with the tan raincoat?
Go through that door, down the stairway until you come to a ramp.
Down the stairway to a ramp.
That's right, a ramp.
May I take the travel bag with me?
Yes.
Is the dinner served on the plane?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
The ticket agent and the passenger were able to communicate, but with some difficulty. What caused the difficulty? It might be said because the passenger was speaking with a foreign accent. But just what does a foreign accent mean? One of the first things a person hears in a language is its tune, the rise and fall of its melody, its intonation. The diagrams and symbols used here are visual treatments of sound patterns, not pictures of exact scientific sound values. Let's listen to parts of the conversation again.
Where is the plane to Chicago?
An American speaker would say, "Where is the plane to Chicago?" This is a different melody.
Where is the plane to Chicago?
The words of the French speaker begin on a fairly high pitch and gradually fall to a low pitch on the final syllable. The words of the American speaker, "Where is the plane to Chicago?" begin with a level or normal tone and remain level until the speaker reaches the syllable in the sentence which has the strongest stress. Now, the melody of a language is important to its speakers. A different melody makes the language difficult to understand. Let's take another example.
Is that the north gate or the south gate?
An American would say, "Is that the north gate or the south gate?" Notice that the speaker of English contrasts the word north and the word south. The French speaker does not. Instead, he stresses the word gate, which is at the end of the sentence. Take the first sentence of the conversation.
Excuse me.
The French speaker has a heavy stress on me. An English speaker would normally say, "Excuse me," with a heavy stress on the Q's of excuse. In French, syllables and words are relatively evenly stressed, but at the end of every phrase, the last syllable usually has heavier stress than any other syllable. In English, on the other hand, the heaviest stress of a phrase may come at various places in the phrase, depending on the words that are used and the grammatical construction involved. Where do the intonation patterns, the stresses and rhythms that the Frenchman uses come from? Let's listen again to some of the conversation we've already heard.
Where is the plane to Chicago?
Here's how he would say it in his native French.
Où est l'avion pour Chicago?
The intonation pattern of his French matches his English. Let's try another sentence.
Is that the north gate or the south gate?
This is how he says it in his native French.
Est-ce la porte d'accès nord ou sud?
Again, there is a parallel in the melody of the speaker's English and French. What the speaker has done is to carry over the intonation of his native language into English, particularly at the end of the sentence. Let's take the first sentence of the dialogue.
Excuse me.
This is how the sentence is said in French.
Excusez-moi.
The speaker has carried over the stress patterns of his language into English. The stress patterns, the rhythms, and intonations are different for English and French. Of course, the speaker has done more than that. He has said, among other things,
bag,
for bag. He has said,
south,
for south,
north,
for north. This is because the a sound in the English word bag, or the th sound in the English words north and south, do not occur in his native French. He comes as close as he can, using sounds he has in his own language. The case of R is somewhat different. Both languages have a sound which speakers recognize as R, but they are made in quite different ways and sound different. The broad sound patterns of intonation, stress, and rhythm, as well as the pronunciation of individual sounds, are important in understanding speech. These differ from language to language. Let's listen to a speaker influenced by her native Japanese language background.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Where is the flight to Chicago?
I beg your pardon.
Where is the flight to Chicago?
May I see your ticket, please?
Here it is. Flight 633.
Oh, gate 17.
Is that north or the south gate?
Gate 17 is north, right through that door.
I don't understand.
You see where the man with the tan raincoat is standing?
The man with the tan raincoat. I see.
Go through that door, down the stairway until you come to a ramp.
Downstairs to where ramp?
A ramp, R-A-M-P.
Can I take with my traveling package?
Yes.
Is dinner served on the plane?
Yes, dinner is served.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
There are a number of sound and pronunciation differences that arose in the Japanese passenger speech. Let's examine a few.
Is that north or the south gate?
The question is characterized by a rise at the end of the sentence. In English, is that the north gate or the south gate? The normal intonation has a drop at the end of such a sentence. In Japanese, a question of this sort is usually a double question.
それは北の改札口ですか？南の改札口ですか？
This means, is it the north gate? Is it the south gate? The Japanese speaker has followed the construction of the English sentence, but has carried over the final rising intonation that she uses in her native language. Many pronunciation difficulties occurred. The speaker said,
Raincoat.
For raincoat,
Ramp.
for ramp.
that is because there is no distinction between the L and R sounds in Japanese, and, to its native speakers, these two English sounds seem to be alike. The speaker also said,
Very.
for very, and
Served.
for served. There is no V sound in Japanese, and the speaker uses the nearest sound in her own language, the B for V. The passenger said,
Excuse. Understand.
Japanese uses no consonants at the end of a word. All words end in a vowel or a nasal. Therefore, Japanese speakers have a tendency to add a vowel to an English word which ends in a consonant. If the passenger were a native speaker of Russian, he would sound like this.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Where is plane which is flying to Chicago?
I beg your pardon.
Where is plane which is flying to Chicago?
May I see your ticket, please?
Here, flight 633.
Oh, gate 17.
Is it North Gate or South Gate?
Gate 17 is north, right through that door.
I don't understand.
You see where the man with the tan raincoat is standing?
I see man with a tan raincoat.
You go through that door, down a stairway until you come to the ramp.
Until I come to the ramp.
That's right, the ramp.
Can I take this platform with me?
Yes.
Is dinner served in the plane?
Yes, dinner is served.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Let's listen to some of the Russian passenger speech.
Is it North Gate or South Gate?
The intonation of the Russian speaker is characterized by a sharp drop after the or. Compare it with normal American English intonation. Is it the north gate or the south gate? There is a rise on south and then a final drop. Now compare the Russian speaker's English intonation with his Russian intonation of the same sentence.
Is it north gate or south gate? Это северный выход или южный?
The intonation patterns of the speaker's English and his Russian are similar. The speaker's native language influences his pronunciation of English. He says,
Where?
for where. This is because there is no w sound in Russian, and he uses the nearest sound to it, the v. Russian does not have a th sound as in the English word north. Therefore, the speaker says,
North.
although there is an R sound in Russian, it is different from the American R. The speaker says,
Ramp.
for ramp, trilling his R. Neither French, Japanese, or Russian has the th sound as used in the English word three. But the speakers of these languages pronounce the word three quite differently. The French speaker says,
Free.
the Japanese speaker,
Three.
and the Russian.
Three.
Each of these speakers is influenced by the sound patterns and habits of his native language. There's a characteristic of English rhythm that is difficult for non-native speakers to master. Take an expression like this.
I've ticketed him for the return trip.
Notice the difference in the speed with which the syllables tick, turn, and trip are spoken compared with the syllables
Et, ed, for, the, re.
that occur between tick and turn. The stressed syllables tick, turn, and trip are lengthened. The unstressed syllables are crowded together and reduced. This lengthening of stressed syllables and crowding together of unstressed syllables is characteristic of English. If this same sentence is spoken by a native speaker of Spanish, carrying over the rhythms of his own language, it would sound like this.
I've ticketed him for the return trip.
The Spanish speaker uses more regular rhythms, giving all his syllables more equal value and creating a staccato-like effect.
I've ticketed him for the return trip.
The crowding together of unstressed syllables in English gives Spanish speakers the impression that English speakers speak very rapidly.
I've ticketed him for the return trip.
The more regular rhythms and stresses of Spanish give English speakers the impression that Spanish speakers speak very rapidly. Listen to the sentence in Spanish.
Le he expedido el boleto de regreso.
Now listen to it in English.
I've ticketed him for the return trip.
The differences in the two languages are not so much in the speed of utterance as in the rhythms and stresses which the languages use. The intonation, stress, and rhythmic patterns of language, together with its pronunciation, form the sound system of a language. The covering intonational patterns are just as important for understanding in conversation as are the exact phonetic qualities of the separate sounds. There are sounds in one language that are totally different from those of another. For instance, there is nothing in English like the German sounds represented by R and CH in the word
Rauchen. 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 Rauchen.
meaning to smoke. A speaker of English has difficulty with this word.
Rauchen. Rauchen.
The American speaker is substituting an American R sound and an American K sound for the German sounds.
Möchten Sie rauchen?
Nor is there in English anything like the French R sound.
La rue.
La rue.
La rue.
La rue.
La rue.
There is nothing in English like the French U sound.
J'ai vu. I saw. J'ai vu.
J'ai vu.
J'ai vu.
But it is not only sounds that are totally new that create problems. There are sounds in the new language that may be familiar to the learner, but are used quite differently. This mother is washing the baby. A Latin American student learning English as a second language clearly understands the difference between this situation and this. The mother is watching the baby. But suppose the student just heard the statement, the mother is washing the baby. Would the student know which situation was meant? Would it be this or this? The chances are he would be confused. He probably would have difficulty in even hearing the difference between washing and watching. Why?
The mother is washing the child.
The mother is washing the child.
The mother is watching the child.
The mother is washing the child.
Because
Washing,
Spanish does not
washing,
use the difference
watching,
between the sound
washing,
sh
watching,
and ch
Washing.
to distinguish meanings.
Washing,
Washing.
English does.
watching,
Washing.
watching.
Washing.
There are sound contrasts that distinguish meanings in Spanish, but not in English. English speakers have difficulty with the difference between the sound
R
and
R
because these sounds are not used in English to differentiate meanings.
Pero means but. Perro means dog.
There are vowel contrasts that distinguish meanings in Spanish, but not in English.
Re, rey, reno, reino. Reno means reindeer. Reino means a kingdom. Now the differences in the English sounds sh as in wash and ch as in watch are important because they change meanings. So are the differences between E in sheep and the E in ship. The differences in the Spanish sound ere, as in pero, and the R, as in perro, are important because they result in a change of meaning. So are the differences in the vowel sounds E in re and A in rey, E in reno and A in reino. These are differences that matter, but not all differences in the way a sound is made change meanings. For instance, there is a word duda in Spanish meaning doubt. Duda, duda, duda. Now notice that the initial D is pronounced da. The middle D is pronounced differently, like th. When the da sound occurs between vowels, it is pronounced th. Thus we have lado, meaning side, like this side of the street, or duda, meaning doubt. Now when a Spanish speaker says duda or lado, he's pronouncing the da sound differently in the two positions. But to him, this difference in sound does not make a difference in words. He's probably not even aware that the sounds are different. But take these two sounds in English. There are words like dare and there, ride and writhe, which have totally different meanings. These sound differences do matter in English. Now, what happens when a Latin American encounters an English word like ladder? He tends to pronounce it lather. I need a lather. Which does he mean, since he pronounces them both the same way? Sound differences that are meaningful in one language are not necessarily meaningful in another. In English, there is a difference between words such as sip and zip, racer and razor. In English, the difference between s and z matters. In Spanish, there are words like sol, casa, with the s sound. There are also words like mismo, asno, with the z sound. Yet the difference between the two sounds does not change meanings. If mismo were pronounced with the s sound and casa with the z sound, they would still be understood as the same words, since these differences do not result in new words. Yet the Latin American has difficulty with the s and z sounds in English. They tend to say racer for razor, sip for zip.
I bought a new razor. I'm zipping up my coat.
The reason for this is that the differences in the s and z sounds do not change meanings in Spanish. Now, linguists have a way of describing this situation. They say that the sound contrasts that change meanings are phonemic. The sh and ch sounds in English are two separate phonemes. The a and e sounds are distinct phonemes. The s and z sounds as well are different phonemes. In Spanish, the ere and erre are two separate phonemes. The e and a sounds are phonemes.
The phonemic differences of a language are of major importance, since they affect meaning. Here are charts listing the phonemes of several languages. Fortunately, the total number of phonemes in any language is extremely small. In English, there are 38. In Spanish, there are 24. In French, there are 35. In Russian, there are 40. There are other sound differences that do not matter. In English, the P sound in pie, for instance, is different from the P sound in lip.
Pie.
If the word pie is pronounced with a lighted match held before the mouth, the flame goes out.
Pie.
There is hardly a flicker in the P sound in the word lip.
Lip. Lip. Lip. Lip. Pie.
Actually, the two P sounds are different, but the difference does not matter in English. This difference does matter in some languages.
Lip.
In Thai, for example,
Lip.
it is a
Pie.
phonemic difference.
In Thai, the word pie means danger, and the word pie means to go. The different pie, 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 pie.
Sound differences that are regarded as mere variants of the same sound and do not affect meaning are called phonetic. Sound differences that are merely phonetic in one language may be phonemic in another language, and vice versa. Modern teaching methods are sensitive to phonemic and phonetic differences in the language to be learned, as well as in the language background of the learner. Sound combinations may cause difficulties. These combinations may occur in the language to be learned as well as in the native language of the learner. Both English and Spanish, for instance, have the sound combination ST. But in Spanish, this combination is never used at the beginning of words. A Spanish speaker frequently says not study, but
Study, 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 spend, 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 stomach.
such pronunciation difficulties are the result of the speaker's conditioning to his own language habits. Individual sounds, such as consonants and vowels, and sound patterns, such as intonations and rhythms, differ from language to language. The sound system of a language consists of individual sounds which operate in patterns of rhythm, stress, and intonation. The sound system of each language is unique. In the modern classroom, learning the proper intonation of a language is as important as learning its individual sounds. Intonation patterns are learned in correct grammatical structures, along with whatever vocabulary is involved. This is a modern Spanish class conducted by a native speaker of the language.
¿Qué hora es ya?
¿Qué hora es ya? ¿Qué hora es ya? Son las 12. Son las 12. Son las 12. Pues es hora de comer. Pues es hora de comer. Pues es hora de comer, De comer. ¿Qué hora es
The teacher
ya?
is presenting an accurate oral model of the expressions to the class.
Pues es hora de comer. ¿Qué hora es ya? Son las 12. Pues es hora de comer. Es hora de comer. ¿Qué hora es ya? Son las 12. Pues es hora de comer.
In explaining the meaning of new expressions to be learned, the teacher is using objects, gestures, and the language he is teaching.
Es ya.
Hora es ya.
Hora es ya.
Hora.
Hora.
Hora es ya.
Hora es ya.
¿Qué hora es ya?
The teacher insists on accurate imitation of the model he is presenting.
Son las 12. Son las 12. Son las 12.
Son las 12.
12.
12.
12.
12.
Son las 12.
Son las 12.
Son las 12.
When necessary, he drills on the pronunciation of individual sounds and words.
12.
12.
Las 12.
Las 12.
Son las 12.
Drill on individual sounds and words is followed by incorporation of the sounds into the proper intonational patterns.
Las 12.
Pues es hora de comer. ¿Todos?
Pues es hora de comer.
Comer, clase.
Comer.
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 Hora de comer.
Hora de comer.
Pues es hora de
There is
comer.
extensive choral work. This helps participation by all and eliminates any self-consciousness by the students.
Comer.
Hora de comer.
Hora de comer.
Hora.
Hora.
Hora de comer.
Hora de comer.
Hora de comer.
Hora de comer.
Pues es
The teacher provides sufficient practice for thorough mastery of the patterns.
Pues es hora de comer.
A ver, escuchen atentamente. ¿Qué hora es ya? Son las 12. Pues es hora de comer. Ahora yo digo una frase, ustedes dicen la otra, Ustedes dicen, son las 12. ¿Qué hora es ya?
Son las 12.
Pues es hora de comer. Otra vez. ¿Qué hora es ya?
Son las 12.
Pues
Choral work is conducted in a dialogue situation by the teacher.
primera frase, yo digo la segunda. Yo digo, son las 12 y ustedes, ¿qué hora es ya? Repitan todos, ¿Qué hora es ya?
¿Qué hora es ya?
Son las 12.
Pues es hora de comer.
Muy bien.
The class and the teacher frequently change roles in the oral dialogue.
¿Qué hora es ya, clase?
¿Qué hora es ya?
Son las 12.
Pues es hora de
Muy
comer.
bien, muy bien. ¿Qué hora es ya, Claudia?
Son las 12.
Pues es hora de comer. ¿Qué hora es ya?
Son las 12.
Pues es hora de comer.
There is considerable individual participation after choral practice has helped the students learn the patterns thoroughly.
La primera frase, ¿Qué hora es ya? Yo digo, son las 12 y usted dice, pues es hora de comer,
¿Qué hora es ya?
Son las 12.
Pues es hora de comer.
Otra vez.
¿Qué hora es ya?
Son las 12.
Pues es hora de comer.
Muy bien, Miguel. Usted toma la primera frase y yo la segunda, Vamos, Miguel.
¿Qué hora es ya?
Son las 12.
Pues es hora de comer.
Muy bien, Miguel, muy bien. A ver, 2 voluntarios para decir el diálogo enfrente de la clase. A ver, Marquitos y Elisa.
The rhythms and tempo of actual speech are
A
maintained.
ver, usted empieza, Marquitos? Y hay que hacer los movimientos. Bien.
¿Qué hora es ya? Son las 12. Pues es hora de comer.
The give and take of actual dialogue situations are practiced.
Y usted contesta, vamos.
¿Qué hora es ya? Son las 12. Pues es hora de comer.
Muy bien, muy bien. A ver, 2 más voluntarios, 2 más. Elena y Catalina, muy bien.
Sound patterns are taught, combined with grammar and vocabulary.
Son las 12. Pues es hora de comer.
Es hora de comer. Ahora usted, Catalina, ¿Qué hora es ya?
¿Qué hora es?
This is a valid procedure of modern teaching of languages. For sound, grammar, and vocabulary exist not as separate entities, but as parts of the unity of the living language.